Welcome back to the Breezy's unofficial podcast today. I'm here with my man, my main bro, Tiga.
Hello.
I still don't have a name for this thing. I don't know if it's even going to be legit or not, but I like doing it because I feel like I've met a lot of cool, interesting people with a lot of cool, interesting perspectives that also make sick music. So I guess the first question would be, I guess we do have to start off with a few basics for people that don't know you.
Yeah.
Just let them know what you're about type
Yeah.
vibes.
As you said, my name's Tiga. It's an acronym that stands for To Grow and Remember. And part of the backstory, there's a long bit of backstory, but to keep it short and simple, it's sort of something I've stood before I was an artist sort of thing. To sort of just develop always and remember the mistakes I have made in the past and all the memories I have made and sort of not try and repeat the bad stuff and only improve on the good stuff. Just using that to continuously grow myself as a person. There's been many different stages of it, but when I started releasing music, it sort of developed me into being the artist I am today, and I sort of try and use that to push me as far as I can sort of go. Yeah.
So you've been working with a lot of different people
Yes.
in pushing your craft forward.
Yep.
What do you think has been the most valuable thing that you've learned that could perhaps, like something you wish you knew earlier type vibes?
That's a good question. Because I was going to say before you said that I wish I knew earlier, I was just going to say simply connecting with as many people as possible. Because I think that's really helped me to get into the spot that I'm in as well. Because you get so many different perspectives and insight to other people's lives and how they do stuff. You can sort of take bits and pieces of what you see is successful within them and bring it into your own life, and then choose the stuff that they're doing that you don't see as good and choose not to use that in your life. I think that's very valuable, and also making those new connections. You can really blossom stuff that you wouldn't know you could do until you sort of try and make that connection. Something I wish I knew earlier, maybe organization. I was very sloppy towards the beginning. And I still go through phases of that, but I always notice the things that keep me the most productive is just being as organized as possible, setting out a schedule, trying to clean stuff and keep it clean. That's another. About 2 weeks ago, I actually was like in a bit of a slump. And then there was one day I had a splitting headache. I'm like, am I really just going to like not do the most another day in a row? And I was like, no, fuck this. And I realized that my room was a complete mess. Something as simple as just cleaning my room, got the ball rolling, and then got me back on track sort of thing. So yeah, organization, definitely a big one.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's weird because creativity doesn't lend itself to organization very naturally.
Yeah.
Like it's very often a fight.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how much structure you need to be productive, but also not to choke out the creative, sporadic, unpredictable.
Yeah. And I feel like being unorganized sometimes is good for the creative side of it, because it just develops a different mood and puts you in a different headspace. So it also like brings out a different part of you. Whereas if you are organized all the time, you might be too strict on yourself and you don't have as much freedom sort of thing. So I feel like there's definitely like a good balance with it.
Where do you think you lie on the dichotomy between structure and creativity? Like, do you think you're more on the creative side, or do you think you need a fair bit of structure to be able to get things out?
I think I've been reading a lot about balance recently and trying to learn a lot about balance within myself, and just trying to be in the smack bang in the middle, I think is very, very important with everything. And I feel like if you're being too strict on yourself, it's harder to be creative. And then if you're trying to be too creative, it's hard to be strict on yourself. So trying to learn the in-between of the two and staying in the in-between. And I feel like it's a struggle a lot of the time. And it's a long journey to sort of figure out. But like always trying to develop that and trying to stay in that middle ground, I think is very, very, very valuable.
Do you think there's value that lies in the extremes?
Yes. I think there's value that lies in anything and everything almost. Like I feel like if you're a complete lazy sack of shit, there's value in that if you can see the value in that later on in the future. And if you're too strict, there's also value in that. I feel like if you're really strict, you get the value because you're constantly doing. Whereas I feel like if you're really lazy at one point, there's also value in that because you know where you don't want to go. You can sort of take from that and go, well, shit, this is the stuff I was doing to put me in this slump sort of thing. How can I not repeat that? Whereas I feel like if you're strict, you're never going to witness that.
Yeah.
You may never know.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to like look up and out to try and figure out where you actually are and what you actually want to do.
Yeah.
This idea of balance is something that weird, like the specific balance that is right for everyone is so different. And it's difficult to figure out what that is from looking at everyone else. Like everyone says like, oh, you need to find the balance that's right for you.
Yeah.
How do you think you find that?
Tapping into yourself and knowing yourself as much as possible. And I think that can help with so many aspects in life. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that actually as well. A lot of people go their whole life and say they die at the age of 80 and they look back at it and go, I don't even know who I was. Why did I just waste all this time? But I feel like if you meditation's a great way of doing that. Trying to dive deeper within yourself, I feel like that pushes you to do a lot and takes you in a lot of positive directions. And that's also a very hard thing to do. And it takes it's a long process to learn sort of thing. But the quicker you can do that, and it might always be forever changing too, but the quicker you can do that, I feel like it'll be the best for you. And everyone's different, so it's going to be different for everyone to find that balance as well. And that's why it's important to do, because if you just compare yourself to everyone else, you're never going to find that balance for yourself because you're just trying to do what someone else is doing and everyone's different. So it's not going to work for you sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But like I said, yeah, meditation is a great way of doing that. I'm not as strict on my meditation as I'd like to be, but I do meditate from time to time when I get in those slumps or when I'm really pushing myself. It's never in the middle ground. It's always like at the low or at the high. But yeah, I feel like that's a really good way to get to know yourself and spending a lot of time alone as well. I feel like that's another thing that people are scared to do because they don't want to be trapped in their own thoughts, but that's how you learn who you are and what you want to do sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like meditation is just spending time alone with your thoughts in the most simplified way.
Yeah.
Like if your eyes are closed and you're just sitting there, all you have are your thoughts. So it's like an accelerated way to kind of dig through it, which is cool. It's tough because when you're finding out who you are, there are moments in time where you feel like you have it figured out. And then there's like a series of days, weeks or months where it kind of, I don't know, goes all blurry again.
Yeah.
And you kind of lose it.
Yeah.
Like the idea of who you think you are is a moving target. And almost, I feel like as soon as you've figured it out, it's changed.
Yeah.
So what do you think is a helpful perspective to help deal with the fact that, I mean, the reality is you're never going to be on top of it. You're never really going to know everything.
Yeah.
And what the right move is.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I've actually been reading a book that talks about sort of the flow state of that and how to like continuously search for that balance and get to where you want to go sort of thing. It's called Ikigai. It's a Japanese word.
Ikigai.
Yeah, Ikigai. That's it. Yeah. And it's essentially your flow state and learning your flow state and tapping into that as much as possible. And I feel like that can help you find your balance, and finding out what that is can help you stay on the path, and then also trying new things and seeing if you have other flow states as well can also help with that moving target, because even as you grow older and shit as well, like you're forever changing. Like even though your balance is forever changing, you're forever changing as well as a person. You're always developing, you're always changing. And I feel like if you can always continue to try new things and find different flow states and accelerate yourself in certain areas, it's going to be harder to not know what that balance is. I feel like, yeah, you've got to bet. You may not be 100% certain on it, but it makes it easier for you to know what that balance is, rather than just sitting there waiting for it to happen and for you to figure it out, because you're constantly searching for it.
Hmm. How do you think music has helped you discover who you are? Or how do you think it's helped you stay on the path?
I think 'cause it's something I love to do. Feel like I think love in general is something that helps push you real far. Whether that be a person, whether that be a subject, whether that be an occupation, whatever it is. I feel like it can really guide you and push you to that next level, because music in itself is a spiritual thing, but so is love. It's like something that it can be a very negative thing, but it can also be a very positive thing. And if you take it in that positive direction, that's what's going to sort of excel you into that area that you want to go, if that makes sense. It like ties you to that idea that you have. And I feel like because I love music and that I have an idea of where I want to go, that's sort of what pushes me further and further to that point. Because it's like I'm almost trying to put that idea into existence.
You're like attracted to it,
Yeah, yeah,
like magnetized in a way.
yeah.
That's interesting. You mentioned love can take you in a negative direction. What do you
Yes.
mean by that?
I feel like what I mean by that, if you love the wrong things and if you focus on the wrong things and love the wrong things, like a simple example of that would be drugs. They're a bad sort of love, because you can love them, but they're not going to take you in the right direction. Or if you're surrounding yourself around the wrong kind of people and you love those people, they're going to weigh you down as well.
Do you think it's hard to make the distinction between what you think you love and what you actually love?
It can be, if you don't know yourself. And that's what ties back to like meditation and learning yourself and stuff, because if you're uncertain of yourself, then you're going to be uncertain about the surroundings about you, because you don't know what to do. Whereas if you know yourself, you're going to know what you love and you're going to know what's not good for you.
What's your favorite song that you have released up until this point?
It's going to be a bit biased, but it's probably choice. I've got like a top 3. It's probably Ride or Die, Trust Me, which was self-produced, and Choice.
Oh, bro, Trust Me is fire. I forgot
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
It's a very slept-on track.
It is.
That song in itself was, when I was younger, did a lot of psychedelics and abused them, and I'd been sober for a very, very long time. And it's when I started taking my music that like I started really tapping into myself and taking my music more seriously. And that song was like, there was a lot that made sense in my mind when it came to doing psychedelics and tapping into myself spiritually. And everything that happened while I was on psychedelics when I was younger seemed like a crazy person's world. And it was like, this shit should have made sense. And then as I started to make music and tapped into myself, everything was the same.
It aligned, yeah.
But I was sober. Like it was the same thing.
Yeah.
I achieved the same goals, but it was sober. So that's what that track is, very like spiritual, and it's connecting the dots. Like everything connects back as one, and it's like everything like it's hard to explain, but
No, I think you nailed it.
yeah.
When you're in the studio, what do you think is the main thing that you focus on, if there is even one thing? Like when you're in the process of creating,
Yeah.
what's kind of like the priority most of the time?
Probably to not get blocked. I think it's important like not to force stuff. I feel like if you hit a block, move on to the next thing, or go for a walk, take a break, come back to it later. Because I think when you get blocked, like get writer's block, or you just have a creative block, you can really get in a fucking dark space about it, and you just like beat yourself up about it, sort of thing. So just to keep it refreshing and new, if you get that block, literally just move on to a different song. Or if that's not the case, go for a walk, come back to it 30 minutes, an hour later, and it's like you get new inspiration, you think completely clearly, completely different like perspective and stuff. So I think, yeah, that's probably like the one thing that just don't get blocked by stuff.
Let things flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is easier said than done, because there's definitely times where it's like you're so close to finishing something and you just want to finish it. It's like the last bar or two, and you cannot. Even last night in the studio, I had that problem where it was literally the last word of the song, and I was like, how do I encapsulate all these things into this one word? And I sat there for a good 20 minutes and couldn't think of that word, and just stripped it back and simplified it instead of thinking about it too much.
Yeah. It's crazy how much pressure you can put on like a word or a line or even like the message or like anything, any aspect of it.
Yeah.
Do you think that pressure is a good thing?
Yes, because it shows that you care about it. I think if you don't feel that pressure, then you're not giving it your all. Because I feel like if you're not giving it your all and just like you do it easily, then you're not challenging yourself. So like if you're not challenging yourself, do you really care about it enough? I feel like it's important to feel that pressure. That's what drives us to grow as artists. If you don't feel that pressure, then you're sort of too complacent with it and you don't care enough to push yourself.
I feel like writer's block comes from that pressure.
Yeah.
Like if you're applying too much pressure
Yeah.
or you're kind of getting in your own way, you're like blocking the flow yourself because either it's not the right word, it doesn't encapsulate everything I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's difficult because there are just moments when it just works and it's so easy.
Yeah.
And if it's happened before, then maybe if I just try a bit harder, it'll happen again.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work like that.
Yep. That's why it's so spiritual, because it's like you can't force it. It's just if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. You can't force it, and the more you try and push it, the least likely it's gonna happen, and something good's gonna come out of it. I feel like writing in general as well. Those are your best like written stuff are the things you try the least hardest with. The harder you try something, the more you push something, it just turns out shit. Like it's never as good as those moments where it's like it just comes out easily. And I think that's where consistency is so important, because if you're not consistent, you might miss those easy moments. Like you might miss those moments where it's like you have your best stuff come out because it's just a breeze, where I feel like there might be like one day you take off, and that one day you take off might be that moment.
Yeah.
And you never know.
Yeah. I really resonate with that because like there's a baseball analogy. Like I don't play baseball, but the idea that even if you've never played baseball,
yeah,
you can go out and you can swing at the ball 1,000,000 times, and the chance that you hit a home run are still slim, but you could get lucky.
Yeah.
And the only time you're going to get lucky is if you go out, stand on the plate, and swing.
Play. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just got to get out there and swing.
Yeah.
And most of the time with music, you're swinging with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
So it's like
true.
You just pray.
That actually ties back with what I was talking about with connection with other people before as well. I tell people this all the time. Like, I've definitely had people in my past where they've hit me up or I've hit them up, and I'm like, I can't see much coming out of this, but I'll give it a crack anyways. Sometimes it doesn't work, but other times it's like some of the best stuff that does work. And I feel like if you don't trust that or try that, you're never gonna know. And even some of the people you think you're like, oh, I really want to work with this person, or I really want to get in touch with this person, and they're like the worst people you can be involved with as well. Like, it works both ways. So just always showing up and trying new stuff is so valuable and important. I feel like if you're not doing that, then again, you're not going to grow as a person or as an artist.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to choice a little bit more.
Yeah.
First of all, why do you think that's your favorite song that you've released?
I think because I saw no potential in it, and I was going to be a throwaway song completely. It was the first time I had sort of tested. I normally test myself quite a lot, but this was the first time I really tested myself with something completely different. And when I say that, I'm talking about the instrumental of it. And I sat on it for a while. I tried to write over it. I had like 3 iterations of it, and I wasn't happy with any of them. I was like, this is rubbish. And I spent a lot of money on the beat too, and I was like, damn, I really got to waste all this money.
Yeah.
So I left it, and it was probably left for like 6 months or something. It was left for quite a while. And I think I don't know if we would have been talking at that point, but I don't think we were close or anything. And I already had a bar in there saying easy breezy. And then we started talking and we got closer. And when I hadn't visited the song in a while because I didn't like it whatsoever. I thought it was rubbish. And then just one day I was like resurfacing old stuff and came across it. I was like, Breezy, why is Breezy not on this?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, that might like relieve some of the pressure and it might make the track easier for myself because there's less I have to write as well.
Yeah, you don't have to come up with a second verse.
Yeah. So let's give that a crack. And again, it was like one of those ideas where I originally didn't think the idea would work at all and I was going to scrap it, but I left it and came back to it later and it just worked. And I feel like that's the same with any idea. The more you force something, it's not going to happen. But if you just like let the universe tell you when it's ready and then you jump for it, that's when you have your golden ticket sort of thing. And I think that's why it's up there because I really like the sound of it, but just the story of that of like, I was never going to use it. And it ended up being one of my favorite sounding tracks that I have. Like the thought of that is pretty cool. And I think the reason I wasn't ready for it is because within myself, I wasn't happy with my skill set and how I could make it sound until I work. And then I came back to it and it ended up being easy later on because I'd worked on myself so much. So I just wasn't ready for it in that moment in time.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about. Like some beats just require a different skill level.
Yeah.
To like, because music, there's no like inherent skill level.
Yeah.
But there's things that you mesh with and you find easy, like your strengths.
Yeah.
And there are beats that don't complement that exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like skill levels relative to your own skill set.
Yeah.
In a way. Like there's things that you can do more comfortably than others.
Yeah.
And to think like so many songs have been thrown away and deleted.
Yeah.
That could have been some of the biggest, greatest songs in the world.
Yeah.
But they just weren't patient with the process.
Yeah. I get like that with content as well. And I know we had a brief discussion about this, but it's the same thing with content. I feel like with anything, any creation you make, if you're not 100% happy with it at the time, that doesn't mean you're not going to be happy with it later in the future. That doesn't mean you're not going to be like, you're going to be less happy with, like you might look at it in the future and like when you make cringe shit and you think it's good at the time, then you look back at it and you're like, this is terrible. What was I thinking? But it can also be the other way around, you know, like you may not like it too much at the time. And that goes back to that track as well. Like you may not like it at the time, but if you just let it sit there for a bit, you can always reuse it later on in the future. And it may not be for the same purpose either. You may repurpose what that is. And you're like, you know, you might just be working and you're like, oh, I can't think of anything. You're like, actually, I remember this one time I filmed this one thing. This would fit perfectly. And it just happens like that. Like it's the universe telling you that's when it's ready.
Yeah, it just like comes to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the universe.
So I think it's like, it's very important to like, I think working consistently is so important because you can just bulk up and pile what you own. And that doesn't mean the rest of the world has to see it at that point in time. Like, I think it's very important to keep working on yourself and always work. And then you choose and the universe chooses what the world sees. If that makes sense. Because you're being you're being vulnerable with yourself to the point where you're trying everything. But that doesn't mean you have to show all that vulnerability to everyone.
Yeah, because there's also going to be things that don't land very authentically.
Yeah.
And those are the things that you can kind of leave to the wayside.
Yeah. But in saying that too, like, that's why it's important to like not hide it, but like not show it to the world because it may not be authentic to you, but in doing that thing that's not authentic to you, you're learning something from that experience.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't, like, if you show that to the world, people are going to notice that straight away and be like, that's not him. Why is he doing that?
Yeah.
But like, if you do that, it's going to test a new area of your life and your skill set. Like, and you need those moments, and you need to do those things that are unauthentic to you to build your character and learn those skill sets.
Yeah, well, it's like figuring out what you don't like to eat so that you know
Yeah,
what you do like to eat.
exactly. Yeah,
It goes back to knowing yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's the most important? I think you did say that it's the most important thing, knowing yourself.
Yeah. But that's like a constant battle in itself of like exactly what you were saying before. You may think you know yourself, and then one day you wake up and you're like, you have all these confusing thoughts and hazy thoughts. You're like, fuck, do I really know who I am? And it's just forever changing, but that's the cycle of life. But I think you have more purpose trying to push to find who you are rather than just sitting there and not knowing who you are.
Yeah. And the fact is, like, if it wasn't always changing, you're not really living.
Yeah.
Like, you're just dead.
You're existing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, as much as it sucks to wake up and realize, like, fuck, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, where do you see your sound moving to? Because from the outside, and I've only got the tiniest slither of light into your world.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen from when we first met, like, oh, bro, I hate trap music.
Yeah. To now.
And now the favorite song you've released is a trap
song.
sound.
Yeah.
All bets are off, essentially.
Yeah. I think that came to me being not as open as what I am now. And that came to not knowing myself as well as I do now as well. My stubborn opinion of that was I don't like trap because all trap's the same. It all sounds the same. But that's not the case. I think there's a majority of it that sounds similar, and that's what I don't like. But if it's done differently and in a unique way, that's what draws me closer to it. Because even though you're using the same umbrella term of trap, you're creating something new. And I think that's what it was. Because it's the same, say, classical boom bap as well. Did a boom, boom, tss, boom, 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 tss, like just something simple as fuck.
Yeah.
If that's all I heard, I would hate the same sound. You know, it's the same with anything. I think the repetition and copying and pasting, that's what I hate.
It just wears out. Yeah.
But that's because I wasn't too diverse in the world of trap. That's how I saw it from an outside view.
Yeah, for sure. That's dope.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny to think I've literally got a song called I Fuck With No Trap. And then I'm making trap music now.
Yeah, and I think it's also like a combination of the people you surround yourself with. Like, trap is such a popular genre now, it's kind of hard to fucking run away from. Like, you can't really be a trap hater in today's age.
Yeah. I feel like that is being stubborn in itself, and you're missing opportunity if you're not diving into what everyone likes. But in saying that goes back to you can still make something that everyone likes and pleases everyone, but make it fucking different. Don't copy and
that's
paste
the
it.
thing.
Yeah.
The thing that people like
Yeah.
is you doing it the way that is unique to you. Like,
Yeah.
if you copy and paste it, everyone hates that shit. It just
Yeah.
looks differently.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
the reason people hate certain artists is for the reason, like, you hated trap. Like, you weren't in it enough to see the intricate details of how different trap songs are differentiated from themselves. Like, for me, I don't really love Taylor Swift's music.
Yeah.
But also haven't listened or paid much attention to Taylor Swift's music.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the same for anything.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't think there's any objective right or wrong in anything.
Yeah.
It's just the story that we tell ourselves.
Well, everything's down to opinion and interest. There is no right or wrong. Like, you could hear the most whack shit in the world. Like, you hear it and you're like, what the fuck am I listening to? But there's going to be a group of people out there that are like, damn, this shit hard as hell, you know? Like, it's just, it all comes, and it may be a minority, but there's still people out there that fuck with it.
I hope
you know?
there's
like,
people out there who think my shit is good.
But do you know what? Like, even if you think the majority won't like it, there's how
There's
many people in
someone.
this world? Like, there's at least one. There's more than one.
Yeah.
Way more than one. But there's at least one person on this planet that likes it. You know.
Yeah.
But in saying that too, I think I've talked about this a lot as well. Unfortunately, a lot with the music industry, everything is status, and that's why those like popular sounds still do good, because they're following the status of, okay, what does everyone already like, but then adding a tiny bit of difference to it. Instead of making something completely unique, I think that's harder to reach a big audience, because people hear it, and even if they like it, they know that no one else likes it around them, so they're not going to like it. And that goes back again to knowing yourself, because people sheep and they're like, oh, well, other people don't like it, so I don't like it. Rather than,
Or these people that I like don't like it. I'm just going to listen to them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I know I like it, so I'm going to like it. Not a lot, like, I'm not going to say not a lot of people, but there's a good majority of people that don't think that way.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say a specific percentage or ratio of people, but I think just naturally the majority of people think the same about the majority of things. I think that's just
Yeah.
the nature of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going full circle,
Yep.
Tiga,
Yep.
what is the thing that makes you unique from everyone? Like, what is the perspective that is different, that is not the same, that is not a sheep ideology that you're trying to share to the world that you think will help people?
I think what I'm trying to do, I don't see any other big artist really doing in the sense of what I'm doing. I think if there are bigger people, I think a good example is Mr. Beast. I know that's completely off topic, but Mr. Beast, in the sense of he has all this money, yet he's so selfless to the point where he's putting wells in Africa, he's curing people's blindness, you know, he's doing all this shit to help people, he's using his power for good, sort of thing. And I think that's what I want to try and do as well. Well, I know that's what I want to try and do. I'm trying to learn more about myself and try and be the best version of myself, so that then I can project that onto other people and help other people. And I think in doing that, especially with my content, just posting real shit, and trying to bring awareness to people of things they may not even know about themselves, but then they see what I post and like, damn, that clicks, you know, like that really makes sense. I appreciate the fuck out of that. So I'm really trying to like push and spread a very positive message and growth, which is in my name. And talking it like I in some of my songs and a lot of like my unpublished stuff, there's so many stories that are untold, and just like bringing people through my journey who will resonate with the people who have been through the same journey. I feel like it's a game of people feel alone at one point, and they feel alone at times in their life, and they feel like no one else feels the same shit. But the reality is there's so many people in this world that feel that same effect, and they don't know how to put it into words. So us as artists are the ones who can put that into words. So our job is to help those people by bringing back that story and giving them clarity, sort of thing. So I'm trying to really like grow myself as a person and tell my story to then project that onto other people, so that they can, hopefully something clicks in their head and they can positively change their life as well.
And what do you think that message is, or that even a specific area of your life that you think could help people?
I think going back to finding what you love to do, sort of thing, and finding your passion and pushing for that and not caring what anyone else thinks about it, sort of thing. I think for me personally, even music in general really helped me in the dark times that I had. And I'm very thankful for those artists that did that. So I want to sort of do the same thing for those people, and I want to push that onto them, in not in a forceful way, but like make them realize stuff so that they can also do something positive for themselves and change their life around, sort of thing, the way that I was from consuming other artists.
So you want to pass the torch in a sense, like pay it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, talking about it, I think it's a very spiritual thing, music, and it's very, very healing, and it's free. You can Spotify, Apple Music, you can stream everything for free nowadays. YouTube, so it's an easy tool and a very powerful tool at that too to help yourself and heal yourself. And not only that, like there's so many different moods. It may not be healing yourself from something negative. It could be pushing you towards a bigger goal through the passion and the drive that you hear. It could be, I don't know, making you want to go eat healthier because like Capo's song Hungry, like I know he doesn't talk about healthy shit on that, but it's like you can encapsulate so many different moods and vibrations and push that onto other people in a positive manner. You can also do it in a negative manner. And I've talked about this before. There's artists out there that they're not going through the best of times and all they talk about is negative stuff. And I think that's okay to a degree, but when all you're projecting is negativity, that projects onto other people and rubs off onto other people. So if they're constantly listening to that music, they're going to be stuck in that depressive state. So I feel like using your words in a positive manner, you can still talk about your shit past and stuff, but using it in a positive direction and in a sense of growth, I feel like that's the way to go, sort of thing, rather than. And it's I'm not saying it's not okay to be sad, but like it's more so when that's all you're doing, because obviously even in doing that, I think people that are doing that, they're trying to help themselves by relieving how they feel, but at the same time they're bringing up that same memory over and over and over again, and it keeps them stuck in that same spot too.
Yeah, it's a very complex and nuanced area. But yeah, I think you're right. Like you just have to know yourself again. Like you just have to know when you're genuinely sharing something that you've been through, and that if it's helping you or if it's helping someone else.
Yeah.
And then when it's moved past that point, and you kind of need to just let it go.
Yeah.
And I think music can help with that.
Yeah.
But maybe what you're pointing to is the fact that people have realized that these sad songs get attention, and they just keep making the sad songs because they get the attention, and not because what they genuinely feel, or not something that they want to fix because it's it's getting them paid.
Yeah. They almost make it a part of their identity as well, like...
Yeah, the victim mentality.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck that shit, honestly. What is one thing that you've realized recently? When I say recently, like, we'll say the last couple of months.
Yeah.
That you think has been the next unlock for your step in the journey towards chasing your potential?
I would say again, going back to balance, trying to find a work-life balance, because I feel like at times I have wanted to push towards something and only focused on myself and only ever done stuff for myself, which I think can be good in moderation. And it's different for everyone, don't get me wrong. But for me personally, I find I learn the most from when I am working really hard and then I go do something very mundane, because it makes me realize what I'm doing is the right thing, and it pushes me closer to where I want to go. In the sense of, say, you go hang out with a group of friends, or you go through a walk through the bush, or, you go driving somewhere you've never been before. Like little things like that, just something mundane, at least once a week, I think is very, very, very important. At least for myself, because it's sort of like not a reward, but a sense of realization when, like, I feel like when you're stuck in a room for 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, it's sort of, you don't have room to breathe. Whereas I feel like it's a good, like, breath of fresh air when you go do something mundane. And when I say that, I mean, like, especially as an artist, I feel like you're always pushing to be greater. But you've also got to realize at some point you're only human. And I feel like you've got to humanize yourself and make sure that your headspace is in the right place. Because I feel like when you hyper focus on something too much, your focus can bend into the wrong direction. Whereas if you have that little bit of release, you can sort of keep on that path better. And that's what I found. I feel like when you go too hard, you can really hit a wall. But if you keep that balance of mundaneness every so often, it's harder to fall, if that makes sense. Like, it's harder to hit that wall because instead of going at full pace, you're sort of going at a steady enough pace so you can see that wall and move around it. And like I said, everyone's different, but for me personally, that's what I found has worked the best. And that is a continuous cycle of figuring out what is too much life or what is too much work. It's like a forever cycle of finding that balance, I think. And I've definitely gone through different stages of it. And like, it's from one extreme to the other. But am I in the moment I'm living at the moment, that's like what I'm trying to work towards. And I feel like that helps me realize better who I am too. Because again, I'm not hyper focused on the one thing all the time.
So to clarify, when you say work life,
Yep.
Work is music and your job, I would assume.
Yeah. Day job, self-development, and music. Whereas, yeah, the life is literally even spending time with family. Like, a lot of the time I won't spend time with family because I'm too busy working. And my mum will try and talk to me. I'm like, I'm too busy. Fuck off. Like, you know, but it's like taking those little moments in. Because I feel like if you're not living those little moments, you may not...
Well, you'll miss them. They won't come back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, anything can happen too. And I've always been big on not making promises in the sense of I never know what's going to happen in the future. Someone very close could unfortunately pass away. It could split the whole family apart. You know, like something tragic could happen and you never know what's going to happen. So I feel like it's hard to make a promise if you don't know you can keep it because you can't read the future.
Unless you know yourself.
Yes. But even in saying that, like, I've been with partners before and it's the same thing where I would only promise what I knew I could keep because I knew that I would do that thing in the future. Whereas, like, when it comes to the actual relationship part of it, anything can happen. Again, someone could pass away, someone could do this, someone could do that. And it could resolve in anything happening, you know? Like, there's so many little things that could happen around that to create that bigger picture. But there's certain things, like when you work on yourself so much, there's certain things you know you can promise and keep that promise. And I don't like not following through with promises. That's why if I know I can't keep it, I won't make that promise.
And I remember one of the reasons you started was because you made a promise.
Yes.
To someone.
Yes. And that was due to an ex, and that was that it was the same thing. I never promised anything. She'd like say, like joke about getting married or this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I can't promise shit because I don't know where this is going to lead. Like, as much as I want it to lead in that direction, and look, like I'm not with her anymore. So I didn't make that promise for a reason.
Do you think it's self-fulfilling?
To not make a promise or to keep a promise?
The hesitation to make a promise. Like, do you think the hesitation to make a promise is evidence of the fact that you don't believe it's going to happen?
No. It's like, it's not the uncertainty of it. It's the knowing of I don't know. It's not like there's no hesitation to it. It's like I know that I can't read the future. I can't, like, if I make this promise, then I want to hold myself accountable to this promise. But if I don't know what's going to happen, how can I follow through with that promise? That's more so what it is. Where there's other things that you know can happen, like that doesn't involve the outside world that you can do within yourself. And therefore, for the promises you can follow through with.
So, when you, in the areas of your life that you feel like you can't make promises.
Yeah.
How often do you think those things happen if you don't make the promise? Like, if you don't promise this is going to happen, how often have they happened anyway?
Honestly, I don't think at all. I being
You know what
completely
I'm saying?
transparent. Yeah, no. I like realistically, like I think I've always said I can't promise that. I don't know what's going to happen, and then that thing that they wanted me to promise about never happened.
And what I've realized is
Yep.
the fact that I can't make that promise is enough evidence to me that I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, but that's I'm a very like open, realistic person to that degree of like. I have a sense, like, it's not even like I know it's not going to happen. It's like, I can't tell you it is going to happen, so I'm going to say no. You know what I mean? I can't make that promise because I don't know it's going to happen. And funnily enough, because there's chance involved. It's something with chance. And if it's something with chance, there's odds. I can't promise that shit because it's a roll of the dice. You could believe in it, that's true, and that might push it towards it, but that's a spiritual thing in itself, like... That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Well, I'm of the belief that the decision is everything. Once you decide and once you decide to make the promise, that's it.
Yeah.
It's already done,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So in your life...
Yeah. I was going to say, I think I know where that stems from. I think it stems from, I have that belief because it stems from people making promises to me
that they're broken.
That they've broken.
Yeah.
And I see that from a different side of the, like, I see that from that other end. So I know that if I can't keep that promise, I don't want to let anyone down. So I'm not going to make that promise because I don't know if I can follow through with it. Whereas people just willy-nilly, oh yeah, pinky promise, you know, like, but yeah.
So when it comes to music, the promise you made is that you would, what was the promise that you made?
So I was writing since like 14, 15, but I never did it seriously. It'd be like one song every now and then. And it was mainly to let out my emotion, and it was to myself. And when I was with this girl, even before I was with her, we saw each other for like a year or two before we started dating, and we were very close. We were like back and forth on and off. And I knew that I wanted to be with her, so I wrote a song about it, and I wrote about how she made me feel and stuff. And she didn't hear about it until later on when we started dating. And I remember we went for to an Airbnb. I think it was a Wingdang or something, like so down near Wollongong. And
that's a random place to go for it.
Yeah, Airbnb. I know. And yeah, I think we were all like doing silly stuff that night, like on stuff. And I just out of nowhere, she's like, she knew about it, but she hadn't heard it. And I think she mentioned it to someone, and they're like, just rap it, just sing it, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever, I'll do it. And I did it in front of everyone, and it just, you saw everyone's face light up, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I made a second one of her later on as well for an anniversary at one point. And at that point in time, I made that promise of, I know I want to make music. I don't know if I'm going to make music officially and release stuff, but if I ever do, I promise that one day I'm going to release these songs. And I still hold that promise close to myself, because even in the time they meant one thing, time has changed and those songs have completely different meaning, but it still means a lot to me, you know? Instead of it being like a love song, it's more of like, it's telling my story of my
behind
past.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like a very common theme behind all of your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that goes back to as well, living mundane parts of your life. Because I think if you just work all the time, you don't get any experience. You only get the experience from what you're working on. Whereas if you live your life, events happen. Like, there's just the nature of the world. Events happen and things happen, and it gives you material to write about and material for you to work on. Like, if something negative happens, you then get those negative emotions come with it. So how do you get through those negative emotions? You know, you work on yourself. But if you never put yourself in those experiences, you're not going to experience it, and then you can never build on it. I think that's why I find it very important to find that balance of like the work-life balance.
Yeah, I think the definition of balance can be confusing to a lot of people. Like, I think a lot of people see it as this static thing. Like, I'm going to do life for 6 hours and then I'm going to do work for 6 hours, and that is balance.
Yeah.
But
there, I'm going to do life is them sitting in front of a TV eating chocolate.
well, that's true as well. That's true as well.
Yeah.
But life itself, like the definition of life is always changing.
Yeah.
So not only will the amount of time you're doing different things is going to change, but the reason you're doing it, what you're doing it for and where it's going and everything around it. Like achieving balance in itself, like the actual achievement of it, to me is impossible. It's like trying to be happy.
Yeah.
Like you can reach happiness, you can reach balance, and then immediately it's gone.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that is. You can make your own decisions on whether you think that's a good thing to shoot for or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of people can get stuck in the idea of like, oh shit, I don't have balance, so I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
I think emotion as well is such a funny thing because it's like, I truly believe you can choose how you feel in the sense of like emotion comes up and it arises. That's cool. You can't help that. Like it may be shit, it may be good. You can't help that, but you can choose what you do with that and how you flip that around. Going back to people being miserable all the time, if they're stuck in that victim mentality, they're going to stay miserable. But if they look at the outcome of it and sit through that negative emotion and let it pass, they're going to be fucking a lot happier 5 minutes later, eh? Like, I think you definitely, you can't help emotion coming up, but you can choose what you do with that emotion and how you let that pass through you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's all about the decisions you make.
And that's where it comes to learning yourself more again, because it's a lot easier said than done. But the more you know yourself, the easier that becomes.
Yeah, the better you can listen to what you're telling yourself, like the decision just becomes clearer. I don't think it becomes easier because sometimes, like, often the simple decisions are the most difficult to make.
Yeah.
Like, if you're with someone and you've listened to yourself and you realize it's not right for you.
Yeah.
That decision is still hard as fuck, but it's very simple.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very... But I want to go back to the promise thing and really like get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
Have you, when it comes to the music, you made the promise to release those songs.
Yeah.
Have you made any promises to anyone or any promises to yourself about where you're going to take it in general or even like just bigger goals?
I don't necessarily think I have made any promises because it goes back to I don't know if I can keep it. When it comes to making promises to myself, I think I know where I want to head and I'm really shooting to where I want to head. But again, any life event could happen that could steer me off that path completely. I could change as a person completely, you know, like, so as much as that's what I want to do, I can't promise that to myself because I feel like if I promise that to myself and then don't follow through with it in the future, I'm not being real to myself.
But if you promise that to yourself, like we said, like you're going to make it happen. And if you don't promise it to yourself, I mean,
but
the odds haven't been stacked in your favor.
No, but I mean, like, if my ideals change in the future and that's not what I want to do, then I'm going to be being fake to myself because it's like, I may want to do something completely different, but I'm like, I made that promise. I have to stay with this. But then that might make me fucking miserable and not me and not like, you know, authentic to myself because I have changed as a person and I'm not that same person anymore. But I've made that promise, so I've got to keep that promise, you know? And then you're in that fight with yourself.
Yeah, well, it just comes back to what promises you're making, like you said. Like, you got to be careful about the promises that you're making.
Yeah.
And that the promises actually align with yourself and what you actually want to do. Yeah. Do you have many promises? Like, you probably have a lot subconsciously, but do you make a lot of promises to yourself?
I think, like, not in the sense of like I promise I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
But like being disciplined and saying I am gonna do this rather than saying I promise I'm gonna do this. I think is it like a bit of even though it's like a similar meaning, it's different wording. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like a promise is a lot deeper of a hold, whereas like I am going to do this. I don't know. You could like thinking about that. I haven't really thought about that before, but it's like the same thing. Maybe I just word it differently.
I think it is the same thing. Yeah.
Because there is a lot of times where I'm like, I am going to do this, and that's what pushes me. I feel like shit if I don't do it, so I do it. Yeah. So I guess that is making a promise within myself. I just word it differently. But I feel like if I make a promise, it's a lot deeper than that. I think when I say I am going to do this, it holds me accountable to do it. But a promise is like that extra step deeper. It's like, there is no choice. You were like, it's life or death. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if you like to stay disciplined and you're forcing yourself to do it by saying I am, you may like something may happen and you don't do it. You're gonna feel like shit, but you haven't broken a promise. Like it is like you do beat yourself up about it, but I feel like if you break a promise, it's like almost the end of the world, even though it's not. You know, like it's
Yeah.
an extra step further.
Have you ever broken a promise?
Probably like a silly promise, like a white lie sort of promise, like, oh, you promise you're gonna clean your room or something like that. Of course, mom. And then I know I'm never gonna do it, like something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
stupid like that. But I don't make the promises like in serious situations to be able to break that promise, sort of thing. And
That's good.
that goes back to the like people in my life when I was younger making those promises, and none of them would ever fall through. So it's just like I don't want to. I'm very big on. I don't want to like. It's like the age old saying of when you're in primary school: don't treat other people how you want to, like how you don't want to be treated, sort of thing. Like if I know something's going to affect me a certain way, if they did it to me, I'm not going to do it to someone else.
They can get you into trouble sometimes too, though.
Yeah.
It gets me into trouble all the time because I've found out I'm just, I guess I'm just different to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's very true. Because I feel like that's when you have like strong ideals and shit. Like when you strongly believe something and then you go by that, other people's beliefs are going to be different, and that's
Yeah.
where it might find confrontation.
But that's why you got to know yourself, bro. If you
Yeah.
know yourself, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's why I feel like openness is very important too. Because if you're very open and you see things from different perspectives and not just your own, that's where it makes that easier. Because you're thinking of, okay, can this affect someone negatively? If so, how can I move around that so it doesn't happen, or just don't do it at all, sort of thing. Whereas like you might truly believe, oh, it shouldn't hurt them, but it might still hurt them. You know, but if you don't see it from that perspective, then you are going to affect them. That's where I feel like, yeah, it's hard. Like that's openness is another hard thing to achieve as well. But that goes back again to knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
Bro, the more like you think about it and the more we talk about it, the more you realize like it all just comes back to the same thing.
I remember you showing me a video a while ago, and it fucking ties back to that, and it ties back to a psychedelic sense as well of we are all one. Like, like everyone is the same to some degree. We should all be working together. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works, but
Right now.
yeah, like with all the wars and the stabbings and stuff that are going on at the moment, like clearly not everyone thinks the same. But if everyone was to tap into themselves further and all become more spiritual, guess what? Everyone would be the same. And like we all connect to the one thing. We all connect to the creation of existence, you know, like.
Yeah. Yeah, I firmly believe that deep down everyone agrees and we know we're all the same. It's just we have miscommunications and that triggers emotions, and then emotions fuck everything up. Like you
Yeah.
can't see straight
Yeah.
through emotion. And your ego is the existence of yourself, and it is fighting for you not to make the realization that you're the same as everyone. Because if you're the same as everyone, you lose your sense of self. You're no longer just Tiga.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
like you are everyone.
Yeah.
So like that battle is, I don't know if we can ever overcome it, but I think it is the number one issue that we face as human beings. Like
Yeah.
that's what makes us human.
I think something that like makes people more aware of that is the people who tap deeper into themselves. Because I can't remember where I heard this from, but I feel like it's very important to tap into your child self a lot of the time and live as your child self. And I feel like we all start as the same thing, and that's where we are different in a sense, but we all start at the same place, and that's due to experience and stuff. And I feel like the people that are more open are the people who try and tap into that younger self. And because you're younger, you have less experience. Therefore, you're more similar to other people around you. Because we all come at like we're all created the exact same way, you know. Like we all start the same, but depending on what happens throughout our course of life, it shapes the person we are, and that's what differs people at the like when you get older. Like and you get those criminals and like, you get all those bad people, you get the really good people as well, but it all comes down to what you've experienced throughout your life. But if you were to tap into yourself and find that childlike self again, you would be more open and everyone would be the same.
It's a weird loop, right? Because you're born, you go through these experiences, and you have to kind of tap into the childlike self, the essence of before you created all these stories about yourself, to realize that you're not what happened to you, so that you can then make the decision to change your life depending on what happened to you, to not become a victim.
Yeah.
And I think the disconnect between you and who you were as a kid is one of the biggest reasons why we have so many victims in today's culture.
Yep. 100%. It goes back to, I remember I talked to you once, I thought of it on the spot. It's like a black hole theory, right? Black holes are an infinite loop. And there's a starting point, like at the top of the black hole, right? You can get sucked in the further and further. I think we talked about it when it comes to creating music. But it goes for life in general.
Yeah.
Like, it's so simple on top. It's a black hole. Like, you see what it is. It's simple. But you can go dive deeper and deeper and deeper. The deeper you go, you come back to the top and realize it's just like it all starts at a start, and it's as simple, like the simpler. It's just a simple thing. And I feel like music in general is another good explanation of that. Like, as creatives, we dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I feel like the further you go, you realize the simplest shit is the best shit you can make.
Billion%.
Yeah, like
100%.
Like, it is such a fucking in-depth subject, and you can go down this massive rabbit hole, but you just need to resurface back to the fucking top. Like, it's the same with life. Like, these people get more and more experience, and they go deeper and deeper in this hole. But if they go back to the top where they started, life's simple.
Yeah. But I think you need to go into the hole to rediscover the simplicity.
Yeah.
That's what I think life is. It's a series of simplicity, digging deeper, confusion. It's like rediscovering yourself. You know yourself, you lose it a bit, you go and find it again, and then you lose it again, and then you find it, and then you lose it. It's life is the cycle of that. As soon as you've found it or you haven't, you're dead.
Yeah. Damn. Talking about some deep shit. It's crazy. I was going to say, I was trying to keep it on for like the whole duration of the podcast. But fuck, it is hot in here.
Shit, bro. I should have. So you bought a microphone, you got the cloud lifter. You can record demos and shit?
Yeah. I didn't get the cloud lifter. I got something called a dynamite. It's literally like a
it's like the same thing. Yeah,
It's the same shit, yeah.
Yeah.
They come out pretty clean too. Like, I've got like a simple mixing chain that I made. Like made.
Yeah.
And it comes out pretty clean, to be fair. Like, I only use it for demos for that purpose because I haven't got treatment and shit in my room. But
well, with these mics, bro, like, you don't really need treatment.
Yeah, like, it hides a lot of the reflections, but even me, who's not used to that sort of stuff, like, I can still hear it slightly.
Yeah, I think it comes a lot down to the mixing as well. Like, you can kind of make up for it if you are technically skilled as well. Yeah. But, I mean, you don't really need to invest time and energy in doing that when you've literally got experts to do it. So.
Yeah.
And you can go to a studio and record it as well.
Yeah, which I prefer to do that because even though I've got good quality stuff, I know places that have better.
Yeah.
And I've got access to those things, so.
Yeah, for sure. Did you buy the camera?
No. Fucking, I went all the way, I was like in the middle of the week. I like talked to this dude a couple of days in a row. We organised to go to Chatswood. I went to Chatswood. I went straight after work because otherwise I would have had to go home, which was like an hour out of the way, and then come back towards Chatswood. I would have been home like 30 minutes. So I was like, no, fuck that. I'll just stay around and float around for a bit. And he's like, oh, don't message me until about 6. And I was like, where we're going to meet and shit because I got work. And I was like, yeah, no, that's fine. We were supposed to meet at 7. Message him. I was there like at 4 o'clock or something. Message him at 6, and I was like, oh, just letting you know I'm floating around. Let me know where you want to meet, and we'll go from there, sort of thing. Didn't hear anything back until about 6:45. He's like, oh no, brother, emergency. He's like, I've got to go pick up my wife. And I was like, oh, for fuck. And he's like, I've got to go away from Chatswood. If you want to meet up later tonight, we can. I'm like, man, I live an hour and a half away. I've got work at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. I got to go home. And I still had to wash up and have dinner and shower and stuff. I was like, man, nah,
Fuck,
that ain't
bro.
it. Turns out he sold it. That was the issue. So he lied to me.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I've like briefly looked around, but I haven't actually like gone to go get anything. But I still have the cash on me, so I still want to I want to try and get it before this next release as well. So I can like if I need to go film content by myself, I can.
Yeah.
I got that option too.
If you want help knowing how to use it and set it up and expose and everything else that comes with it.
I know where to go.
Yeah. And Al's as well. He'll fucking help.
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what your next... we were talking about it before. You don't really know what your next release is going to be yet?
Yeah, it's a battle between two songs. One is...
Let's play it right now on the podcast so you can decide. No, I'm kidding.
Channel into radio number... Blah, blah. One of them is about talking about like distractions and shit around life. And again, talking about my experience and where I've come from and how it's built me into the person I am and how you can sort of do the same thing. And then the other one is like a very not so much like me, like dirty talk. It's a bit of like an R&B / trap song.
So like what Russ has been doing, kind of?
No, different from that.
Yeah.
It's like a lust / fuck you song. It's like a part of the story is like very gruesome in sexual terms, and then the second part is still sort of talking about it, but it's like a big fuck you. Like, yeah, it's a good song. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's a battle between the two. But that goes back to me always like trying something different. Like I have my comfortable areas, and sometimes I always go back to those comfortable areas, but some of the best shit I find is when I just experiment and try different stuff.
Yeah. Always adding new tools to the tool belt.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. How many unreleased tracks, demos do you think you've got?
It's hard to put a number on it.
Ballpark in like the 10s, 20s, 30s, 50s.
30 to 50 maybe. Like, it's a handful, but there's
How
also...
long have you been making music for?
Just over a year. Like, officially releasing music just over a year, but seriously writing and stuff, maybe 2 years, 2.5.
Yeah, man, we're the same. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I forget about that.
Yeah. Completely different paths as well. Like, it's so interesting and cool how two people, like, it's the same with everyone. Two people could be doing the same thing, but because of their experience and where they want to go and what they want out of it, like, completely different paths, but they're still aiming for the same sort of stuff. It creates two completely, like, unique characters.
Yeah. 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 Everyone's their own main character, for sure. Have you been enjoying the new type of content that you've been making?
Yeah. I've like, it's always content is always, this is like, people are not going to like me for this, but I've always hated making content.
I think that's pretty common feeling amongst artists. Yeah.
It's like a mix. Like, I don't have a problem with making content as an artist. I had problems of doing it as a producer, and that's why that fell off, because I was making 8 videos a week, and the production side of it was chewing up way more time than the artist side, and I felt like I was forcing it too much, and I wasn't happy with it, and I came to a realization of, like, what do I really want out of this? And I was like, I'm wasting my time doing this. As much as I like to do this in my own time, I feel like I'm forced to do it for the camera.
Yeah.
Just to get content out. And I was like, no, fuck this. So I do enjoy putting content out, but at the same time, I've always been a big introvert, and I've had to, like, shape myself into a different person to make content.
Do you feel like you're a different version of yourself right now?
Oh, 100%, yeah. Like, when I was younger, like, before becoming an artist, I wouldn't even put photos on Instagram and stuff. Like, it was really rare you'd see me. It'd be like that 3-year update of, like, profile picture type beat. Like, type beat. Like, I was never in front of the camera. Even when people were like, oh, let's get a photo, I'd like, fuck off, turn the other way, walk away, sort of thing. Like, and I've always, even now, you still catch me doing that sometimes. Like, but obviously in the day and age,
this is the wrong fucking profession to be in if you don't like photos.
It's the same thing with shows and stuff as well. I've said that before. From my experience, I've learned that I thought I got very anxious and nervous, like, performing in front of people. but it's not that. It's actually going to gigs. Like, it's actually going to the venue. I get really anxious and nervous and, like, panic for, like, a good 3 hours, and then it settles down. I thought it was performing. I actually don't mind performing, but most of the time when I do perform, it's towards the beginning of the night, and that's why I get that, like, panic nervousness. And I enjoy feeling that because it helps me grow, but I really force myself to do that shit. Like, it's not something I'm comfortable with. It's not something I do enjoy. What I do enjoy going to gigs is actually talking to people more so than performing. Like, talking to new people and meeting new people and shit. Which doesn't really make a lot of sense, because you would think the reason I feel so nervous going into a gig is because I don't know anyone. It's in the unknown, but I enjoy talking to people I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a strange thing, but I think it's a similar thing with content. It's like I'm putting myself in a place that I feel very uncomfortable and very vulnerable.
So if you like performing and you like talking to people you don't know, why do you get nervous?
I don't
going to
mind
gigs?
performing, but I'm not a massive fan of it, if that makes sense. Like, I sort of do it because I know I have to, because I have to get that experience. And if I want to pursue this as a career, that's just one of the things that comes with the package. Like,
Touring.
yeah, touring, doing shows and stuff. Like, if I want to make this into an actual profession and career in my life, I'm going to have to do that.
That's not true, especially today.
Yes and no. I feel like yes. I don't
Especially
have to
if you're
do it.
like thinking like Mr. Beast, like you can make money.
Yeah. But you're right. But at the same time, it's such a big opportunity and you could get a lot out of doing shows.
Yeah, and I
I'd be
think it'd
shooting
be
myself in the foot if I didn't
way
do it.
different when you're headlining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when you're doing your own show and everyone's coming to see you,
Yeah.
it's gonna be way different.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's going to... That's like... If I look at everything as a pie chart of, like, how confident and comfortable I am in areas, that's, like, the smallest section is performing.
Yeah, same.
Like, everything else, I'm, like, pretty decent at, and I'm happy with in most areas of that subject. But, like, performing is, like, I'm the most vulnerable and uncomfortable I am in anything. And, like, I really, really have to push myself to do that shit.
That's crazy because, like, the reason I get nervous is because I use auto-tune.
Yeah.
And if I don't have auto-tune, I sound like shit.
Yeah.
So it's weird for you to say that, knowing that it's just your own voice and, like, you can perform anywhere. You don't need a microphone.
But that's the other thing. It has nothing to do with what's coming out of me, because I know that I can perform that shit.
Yeah.
It's just having people around me. And that's all it is. Like,
Yeah.
it has nothing, because I know a lot of artists, I've spoken to a lot of artists, and they have that problem because they're like, oh, what if I sound like shit? Or what if they don't like it? And they're thinking about what other people think of them. I think about myself, and, like, I'm like, it's just a feeling. It's not even like a thought. A lot of people go through like a bad cycle of thoughts of like, oh, what if they think this? What if they think that? How are they going to feel? Mine is just the feeling itself of, like, anxiousness and stuff. And it's within myself. It has nothing to do with other people's thoughts. Like, my brain process never goes in that direction, which I'm glad about, but it's also frustrating because I can't pinpoint why I get that feeling. Like, it makes it harder to figure out why I get that feeling, how I can work around it. Except for the only option I have found thus far is just doing it. Like, the more you do something, the less uncomfortable you're going to feel. And it has sort of worked a little bit, but, like, that's because it was so drastically bad at the beginning. Like, I remember the first time I jumped on stage, I was so nervous, my vision went completely black. I thought I was going to throw up on the mic the whole time.
Yeah.
But I just kept, like, forcing it out. Like, it came out naturally because I've practiced myself a lot.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, like, I was on the verge of death. Like, I was going to pass out or something. Like, I felt awful. And when I told that to other people who saw that, they're like, are you fucking kidding? You did amazing. Like, they're like,
Yeah.
I can't believe that's your first time, but that's not how I felt. And that's why I say, like, it has nothing to do about how I think other people think of me. It's just a feeling that I get.
Interesting.
And actually, one of my goals of this year is I've always had really bad anxiety my whole life, and as a kid it was so bad to the point where I missed job opportunities and shit. But I'm at a point now where it's like I'm a lot more comfortable with it, but I still get it really bad. I just deal with it. It still comes, I just deal with it, sort of thing. So one of my goals of this year is trying to push myself more and more out of my comfort zone and go in public and talk to random people and do content more in public to really push that uncomfortability so that it hopefully eventually doesn't become a problem.
Yeah.
Like, it becomes less and less of a problem.
Yeah. It could even become a strength.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something like, as I've met Verse and hung out with him, he's fucking
He's
crazy,
a next
bro.
level, man.
Man.
Especially in public too. He just
Yeah.
talks to everyone and anyone.
I love it, bro.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it's also good for someone like me who wants to get better at it.
Yeah.
You just surround yourself with the people who just fucking don't
Do
give
it.
a fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out, Verse.
Yeah, what a mad cunt.
Who do you think has helped you the most in your musical journey? And you can't say yourself, obviously.
Damn it. Oh.
Everyone sucks.
Can I use the word me instead? No.
Myself.
That's a good question. I'd have to say one of the first people, either you or Verse, literally one of the first.
No way.
Yeah, no,
bro.
seriously, because, like, right, put it this way. I would say you in the sense of the self-development side, which has pushed me to become a better artist, because even though you don't tell me to do things, just hanging out with you makes me realize things. And even when I think I'm on top of my shit and then I hang out with you, I'm like, this man doing so much more than me. I can try harder. I can do more. And like that pushes me in such a good direction. And Verse as well. He's got a whole family. He's like 40 something years old, I'm pretty sure, or maybe late 30s. I don't want to call him too old and getting shit for
I
it.
think he said he's 38.
38,
Yeah.
there you go. But he's got 4 kids, I think, and a wife.
Which is so fucking crazy.
And
bro.
he's he looks very tough from the outside, and he comes across very tough, but he's the biggest soft cunt.
Yeah, he's like for people who don't know, he's fucking jacked. Like, he's yoked. He's got tattoos down the side of his face. Like,
He's got a rat's tail. Like, he looks like you look at him wrong and he's gonna
he's
beat you to a
like-
pulp. Like,
and he's so high energy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's easy to be intimidated if you don't know him, for sure.
yeah.
But bro, he's the fucking coolest dude.
But he was there that first time I jumped on stage, and I wasn't gonna do it, and he was the one that pushed me to do it as well. Like, he really cares about what other people think and where they're headed and what they're doing, sort of thing. Whereas I feel like a lot of artists especially, are very selfish, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's okay to be selfish because you need that to push yourself. But he really truly does care about other people and what they're doing and how he can help those other people as well.
Yeah,
And he's shown that countless times too. Like, yeah, shout out, Big Boss.
big boss. Yeah, fuck yeah, that's so good.
What about yourself? Is there anyone that's sort of like pushed? Is there anyone that you've sort of gone, fuck, if I didn't have them around, or like they hadn't entered my life, I wouldn't be in the spot that I'm in musically, or
Oh, bro, everyone.
yeah,
Like, I feel like you, Capo,
yeah,
Verse, even like Cam. I haven't spent a lot of time with him, but the song we made, and like, you know, everyone for different reasons. Like, I feel like you have helped me a lot because you, I don't know if it's the right word, but risk averse. Like, you just are willing to risk more.
Yeah.
You're willing to go a bit more all in on what you're trying to do. Like, bro, if I'm honest, I don't think I would have committed to like what you're doing,
yep,
and like just even just the financial like commitment
yeah,
that you've made.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know if I could ever do that, and
Yep.
I don't think it's good or bad. Like,
Yeah.
depending on which route you take, it's just, again, the decision to commit.
Well, it's kind of like it goes again back to knowing yourself. Like, what do you really want out of this life? What are you gonna do? I could be earning all this money, and then going out on the weekend, spending it on piss, or like throwing the money away, or I could be at home and not spend a cent. But then, what's the fucking point of having that money? Like, what do I really want out of this life? And like, yeah, sure, money helps you live, but like, if it's just gonna sit there, what good is it worth?
And that's like what Verse said as well. Like it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like it holds no value sitting in your bank account.
Yeah.
It only holds value when you deploy it.
When you invest it, that's when it has
Yeah.
true value. When you invest your money, whether that's into a person, into a program, into the gym, no matter what it is, like if you invest your money, that's where you find the worth.
Yeah.
It's the same with time, bro. Like, the more you invest your time into like like music or a person or something, you're gonna get more value out of that thing.
Yeah. I feel like we need to be taught that a little bit more. Like I haven't really thought about that specifically. Like investing your money, but not just in like stocks or whatever. Like the typical way of investing. Just investing in yourself, and that can look like so many different things. Like you said, the gym could be equipment, gear, like for what you want to do. You know, like it could be anything.
Yeah. But that's going back to that Ikigai thing as well, like figuring out what that is for you by tapping into yourself deeper and investing fucking all you've got into that one thing. Like, and if that doesn't work, find the next thing. And if that doesn't work, find the next thing. But like, that's the whole journey of life. Like, you're figuring it out as you go, and like.
And going back to like what you said earlier, like sometimes you would go to a session.
Yeah.
Sometimes it wouldn't work out. Sometimes it would. But you always learn something, and it's never a waste.
Yep.
Like, even like some business people that I follow online, they're like, oh yeah, I lost so much money making all these mistakes, but I didn't lose money making mistakes. I paid for a lesson.
Yes. Yep. That's a good way of putting it. It's very fucking true.
Like, I didn't lose $1 million because I hired a bad employee.
Yep.
I paid $1 million to learn that this type of employee is not a fit for my business.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's such a good way of putting it.
And then it makes the lesson so much more valuable because you've assigned the thing you've lost into this thing, and now you've kind of flipped it in your favor.
You've put value into it. Yeah, that's genius, really.
Yeah.
Like,